Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press, hour number 2, 5:01 your kickoff time here on a beautiful, well, not a beautiful, forgive me, it's ugly. March 19th might describe the mood of many March Madness fans here on a Thursday afternoon where we should be watching March Madness basketball. I should be on the road as well as my guest, who should be on the bench watching the Aggies compete to try to get their first NCAA tournament win in 19 years. Actually, no, excuse me. 19 years, actually, 2001. Instead, the coronavirus has ended that and ended all hope of that. And so here is my next guest, Karl Smith, joining me here for the whole entire hour. He's USU men's basketball trainer. Gabby, the intern, is here as well. As Gabby is completing her, I guess, technically her final day with us. Gabby, still holding up over there?
Yeah.
Are you sure you don't want any of these fudge M&Ms?
I'm good. Thanks, though.
It says a share size, so I'm supposed to share with somebody. And I don't want to eat all these. I look like an Oompa Loompa.
No, you don't.
I look like a chocolate Whopper.
My.
Just king size.
Okay.
It's bad. Karl Smith here joining me on the Full Court Press. Karl, again, thanks for spending the whole hour with me, my man.
It's no problem.
Okay, so we were just talking about Clemson. And by the way, we were playing a little game here where you can text into the show. If you just joined us here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan, we're playing a game where you can text into the show at 435-339-0321. And you can ask Karl any question. Now, here's a caveat to it. He does not have to answer that question if it deems too sensitive to his job. So he will ask him, but he can also say no comment. No, thank you. Or he can just start yelling at me.
I can ramble for 5 minutes and never
about
answer
something
the
else.
question.
Yeah, like Craig Smith does. He answers the question by not even answering, just talking for 3 minutes, and then turning around and saying, "Oh, sorry, what was the question again?" Yeah. No, and so you can also hit me up on Twitter at Ajay Salvi to ask any questions for Karl about what his experience has been like and so much more. Hey, before we get back in Utah State basketball, we were just talking about Clemson. DeAndre Hopkins is traded from the Texans for a bag of beans to go to Arizona and play on the opposite side of the hash mark of Larry Fitzgerald with Kyler Murray behind center. Did that blow your mind on that trade?
Yeah, I don't understand it personally. I just don't get, if you're... Now, I've watched a lot of Texans games, so if I'm trading what I consider to be the best wide receiver in the NFL, and I've watched my quarterback get sacked an average of 7 times a game, and I'm not getting at least one all-pro offensive lineman, maybe 2, I'm not trading him because I know what the weakness of the team is, and it's not necessarily your running back, especially when you're trading for an often injured, good running back, but often injured. It just didn't make sense to me.
Well, and the other thing with it is they have like 4 running backs already because didn't they still have Lamar Miller?
Yeah, I think Lamar Miller's still there, Carlos Hyde, which I don't know if his was a 1-year deal. I would have to look. But they have some decent draft picks, too, that they could go get a running back. And we know, we won't have a long conversation, but we know running backs in the NFL are available.
With that, how do you think Deshaun Watson's feeling right now? You got to be sick to your stomach.
Yeah, I just, unless they've promised something to him as far as in the draft or they have an idea what they're going to do in the draft to get him some help. He doesn't really have an offensive line right now, and he doesn't have a lot of targets. They still have Will Fuller there, but he's, again, often injured, just like David Johnson. Probably their 2 biggest weapons right now are probably an average of 8 to 10 games a year you can get out of them. So, it just doesn't make sense to me. When DeAndre Hopkins played every single game, I don't know if he's missed a game in his career yet. I'm sure he has, but he hasn't missed a ton of games.
2 games in his career.
In his entire
2 games,
career,
and that's it.
And he's the best in the league, as far as I'm concerned, which we could argue that too.
DeAndre Hopkins, according to Bleacher Report, said that Bill O'Brien compared him to Aaron Hernandez and criticized Hopkins for having mothers of his children around too much. How does Billy O'Brien still have a job?
Well, DeAndre Hopkins came out and kind of cleared the air about that situation and said that he loved his time with Houston and that he respects Coach very much. So I don't know the truth of that whole reporting as far as what he said.
Fair enough.
but I don't know how he has a job with the team he has because he's kind of the GM coach, and now he's put together this team, and I don't know how you have a job after that, but we'll worry about what he said later.
So do you become a Cardinals fan now? I mean, how do you do that?
I'm gonna be an NFL free agent for the next year, and we'll see where Trevor gets picked. Whoever takes Trevor probably has my allegiance.
So the Texans had agreed to trade DeAndre for like a fourth round pick.
Fourth round and David Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the Bills, they get who did they get as a receiver? Just recently, I can't remember his name.
Stephon Diggs.
Yes, but they had to give up like 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and a guy, I think an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Like, it makes you shake your head that DeAndre Hopkins gets traded for a colorful flavored bag of beans, and yet Bills have to give up the pine just to even sniff getting Stephon Diggs, who, by the way, wanted to leave Minnesota.
They just want to create a news. It's slow in the sports news now. They just wanted to create something exciting to talk about.
I feel like NFL's saving our grace for this, though. I mean, it's just as crazy as this has been.
Yeah.
I got to ask you with Clemson Tigers, Dabo Sweeney, Trevor Lawrence coming back. You like their chances to come back and be a part of that 4 team? You always do.
I always do.
Here's the thing.
The last 7 years.
I get bothered by it, though, and I want you to defend this argument because it's my argument all the time. The ACC is weaker than the Pac-12. And that's why I think that the ACC, Clemson gets an automatic bid into the 14 playoff based on the fact that they have a crappy conference.
But they've performed when they've gotten there.
Have they, though? I mean, they squeaked by North Carolina.
Performed better than Oklahoma that keeps on getting there.
But Oklahoma plays it in a tougher conference.
I worked in the Big 12 for a couple years. I don't know which one. The ACC gets a bad rap for being weak, and then Clemson gets a bad rap for who they play. In my opinion, Clemson can't help. Clemson always has 2 SEC teams on the schedule. Whether it's Auburn, Georgia, they've played Alabama in the past. They always play the last game of the year in South Carolina. Can't help that that's kind of a dumpster fire right now. You don't expect an SEC team with the historic caliber of South Carolina to be as terrible as they are right now. You don't expect Florida State to be where they are right now. Georgia Tech is normally better. And so it's kind of unfortunate. Clemson can't control that. All they can do is control themselves. And they do that, and they win. So you have to reward them in that. And, they do go out and they schedule. They're not an SEC school playing 4 FCS schools in a year or 2, and then the worst of the FBS schools.
True.
They do actually schedule out a conference, and they can't control their conference right now. And their conference historically and should be better. If you look at NFL draft picks, current players in the NFL, ACC is not shabby when it comes to comparing to everyone besides maybe the SEC, which is overrated.
The SEC is overrated?
I'm going to go there.
LSU would love to have a conversation with you right now.
I'm sure they would. I'm not saying the top of the SEC. I'm talking about SEC as a whole. People often forget about the Vanderbilts and the Mississippi States, the Ole Misses, and the Arkansas.
Do you feel like, but those teams would just demolish teams like in the ACC, North Carolina, Duke.
Mississippi State would?
Georgia Tech.
No, Mississippi State wouldn't. Arkansas wouldn't.
This sounds like it's being biased.
Vanderbilt wouldn't.
Arkansas, okay, so
I think South Carolina's lost to their last 4 ACC opponents. Could be wrong there, but I think they've played North Carolina State, and they lost to both of them.
Okay, so Vanderbilt football versus Duke football.
Duke has a good chance of winning those games. They really do.
You're not joking either.
No,
you're dead serious.
Cutcliffe has done a heck of a job there at Duke. Clemson's backup quarterback that probably saved their chances for the national championship 2 years ago, Chase Bryce, just transferred to Duke.
Should the college football playoff be expanded to 6, 8?
Make it 16. Clemson will be in the final every year.
Every year?
Yeah.
16?
I'm not going to say every year, but most years.
Okay, so here's the thing, though, is what I'm asking is Pac-12 has an undefeated team, if they did. Big 12 has an undefeated team. Clemson goes undefeated. You have 2 SEC teams that are undefeated, but you only have 4 spots. Looking at it, and if the Big Ten has any say in it as well. If they have a 1-loss Ohio State team who maybe loses to a team in non-conference play, one of those big kickoff games, you would still have to think that the ACC would get left out based on competition of conference.
Depends on who your 4 non-conference games are. That's what I would say.
Okay,
would have to be.
all right, fair enough.
It would depend on who you played out of conference. Because if you play Auburn, Georgia, and South Carolina and you beat all 3 of them, you have an argument.
Absolutely.
But if you play Furman, Wofford, Mercer, and Jacksonville University, then you probably not going to get there.
So how does Ohio State do it then? Because I feel like they play cupcakes.
Big Ten, but their conference is tough. That conference is really, really tough. Really tough.
Is that the toughest conference in the nation?
Could be week in and week out. I could say Big Ten is tougher than the SEC. Week in and week out. From top to bottom. SEC, yes, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the LSUs. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I will not take them away. But their bottom 6, 7, 8 is about like everyone else's bottom 6, 7, and 8.
Worst conference in the country would be who? Out of the Power 5? Yeah.
Pac-12.
Ooh. Really?
That's what I'm going with. But I'm also a Southern kid.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this earlier today. It's kind of interesting that we're talking about this because in 2000, I don't know what year it was, 2003, I moved to Arkansas. It was a Reggie Bush year, 2003, 2004, whatever it was.
04.
And I just moved to Arkansas from Virginia. And the first game of the year was the USC Trojans against the Arkansas Razorbacks
yep.
in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
I know where you're going with this one.
And people and sports radio and everybody was talking for months. And Arkansas had a team, I believe it was Darren McFadden, Peyton Hillis, Felix Jones. It was one of those teams. Very good Arkansas team.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a lot of hype that year. And I remember everybody in my high school and everyone I was around, they don't know how to play football outside of the South. And that's us people from the South kind of believe that a little bit. Now, I've been around the country enough to understand that that's not true, but it's a common belief among people in the South. And I remember watching that USC Arkansas game. It was unbelievable what Reggie Bush did to that entire team. And I think that I would say the final score is 55-13. I'd have to go back and look. It was unbelievable. And then the narrative kind of changed going on from there about not being able to play football outside of the South. But I would say Pac-12 is probably – because what do you have? You have ACC, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12. I'm saying Pac-12. I'm saying they're the weakest. I'm sticking with my gut.
Fair enough. I was just looking up that year. So they beat – I don't know if it was – did they play in back-to-back years? No,
they didn't. Back-to-back years, once in the Coliseum, once in Fayetteville.
So they didn't play him in 04, and that's the year they went undefeated. And then in 05, they went undefeated too. They beat Arkansas at home. Final score, 70-17.
Look at the next year. I think the next year they went to Fayetteville. Look at that.
Yeah, they did. 50-14.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So they outscored them in 2 games. 120 to what? Let's do the math here, Gabby. 17 plus 14 is what? 27, 30. 120 to 30 in 2 football games. And then they thrashed Nebraska too. They had a good schedule. They lost to Oregon State by 2, but then beat Oregon, California, and Notre Dame back to back to back. All at home though, but all of them are ranked.
That was Matt Leinart, wasn't it?
It was. Not. It was that Booty guy.
John Booty?
Yeah, it was him.
Booty. Yep.
Dude, where did he ever end up? I have no idea. And then they lost to USC, the UCLA the following week, 13-9.
I do remember that.
And then beat Michigan in the Rose Bowl 32-18. Finished 11-2 on the year. I remember, so the only time I when I was a manager at Utah State for football in 04, we went to Alabama that year, and we went to Clemson that year. And it was just like, I went there for the experience, knowing that we had no right being in any game at all whatsoever. We were down 10 at half to Alabama, and they were booing this sold-out 86,000 was booing the Crimson Tide off the field because they were really up by 10 on us.
They don't take lightly to that.
No, And so then we lost like 35-17. And you saw like SEC football being played. And then we got ACC and Clemson at Clemson. And this is like in late
2004. I'm looking it up.
This is like mid to late October when we played Clemson. And by the way, at this time, we had traveled the most miles in Utah State football history in the season alone. And we played, who was it? Yeah, we played Clemson. Well, I'll tell you what, watching Clemson come down that freaking hill.
And that wasn't even a good Clemson team.
Oh, dude, no. And I was like, and I think it was, what's the Hurst kid?
Charlie Whitehurst.
Yes. He was the quarterback.
He had a semi-successful backup NFL career.
Yeah, absolutely. Where did he? Because he did play. He went with the Titans, didn't he?
He played for the Titans. He played for He was with the Seahawks for a long time.
That's right.
He was backup.
So
he got paid.
I remember watching him, like, or watching that team come down the hill, and I was like, "Yeah, we're screwed. We ain't winning this game." Like, just watching them run down the hill, I was like, "Holy crap, we're not
something to see."
And they blew us out. Like, that game wasn't even close. And I think was Clemson ranked that year? In 04?
I don't think so. I think they were 1-4 going into that game.
Were they really that bad?
Yeah, they were. They were not great that year.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I just remember watching them and just no right in the world of being in that game against the Clemson Tigers. But it was one of the coolest sights to behold is watching them run down that hill full speed, and you have the crowds on both sides. And who was their coach back? Was it Bowden?
Yeah, Tommy Bowden.
Oh, man. Yeah, that throws me back a little bit.
Just seen how mad I was when they fired Tommy Bowden and hired Dabo Sweeney.
And now?
I'm pretty happy.
Where's Tommy Bowden at?
I think he does ACC Network. He's something on TV. Something regional.
You're right, dude. Clemson was 1-4 going into that game. They beat West Virginia, Wake Forest in double overtime by 7. Lost to Georgia Tech by 4. Lost to A&M by 21 at A&M, by the way. Lost to Florida State by 19 at Florida State. And lost at Virginia, who was ranked 10th in the country at the time, 30-10. And then just put a butt whipping on us. Wire through for 179. Merriweather, forgot about that guy. 84 in rushing. Oh, my heck. And then they beat Miami. Of course they do. They beat Miami by 7 in overtime.
Always.
Who's Clemson's rival? So is South Carolina really a rival?
No, it's huge. It's huge in state rivalry. I'm not going to compare it to BYU and Utah because it's way bigger than that has ever been.
Really?
It's like the Auburn, Alabama. It's the
you put it up there with Auburn and Alabama, or compare it at least. More so than BYU and Utah.
Yeah, more definitely on that level. Not quite at the Iron Bowl level, but it's as good as Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech.
See, that's saying
Florida
something too.
State. It's as good as those, for sure.
How's the tailgating?
Oh, it's unreal. Food is unbelievable. Tailgating down there is next level.
What's your go-to on tailgate Southern food?
You have to have some mac and cheese. You have to have some kind of pork, in my opinion, whether it's pulled pork or chops or whatever you want to do. And it's just kind of snack food from there. The mac and cheese is important.
Really?
Mac and cheese is very important. So that's
do you put anything in the mac and cheese? Like some people put bacon or whatever it is. Do you put anything in the mac and cheese?
No, you don't. No. You don't need anything in there.
If you cook it right, you don't.
It's macaroni and cheese.
Can I tell you?
That's what it's called.
Can I tell you guys a secret? This is gonna just absolutely throw Gabby off. But I've never had mac and cheese in my life.
That's unbelievable.
I'm not even joking. I've never had it. It just never looked attractive to me.
My Aunt Cindy makes the best mac and cheese in the world. It's unbelievable.
See, if I have it, if someone says, I'll offer you Southern mac and cheese, I'm not going to have it from a freaking Kraft box. Like, if I'm going to have mac and cheese, I want it the Southern way.
I'll have you over.
Oh, I'm totally in. I've never had mac and cheese, but I want it the right way.
Oh, it's the best thing in the world. One of the best things in the world.
I'm totally in. That's Karl Smith, USU men's basketball trainer. This is so much fun to have you here. Next, coming up after this break, I want to talk the 3 nights in Vegas and from your point of view.
Those were pretty fun.
What it was like from when you see it. Malachi's half-court shot that looked dead on to about everybody so far.
It was in.
I talked to. I want to ask you about like what the locker room was like when you're you're down 8 to San Diego State at halftime, or or what the atmosphere was like when you're in this battle with New Mexico and the game against Wyoming, of course. So much to recap with you. It's Karl Smith. If you want to text and ask Karl any questions, you can at 435-339-0321. That's 435-339-0321. Text in any questions and we'll ask them on air. It's all in the Full Court Press, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan.
The Aggies, Jazz, high schools, even the Pee Wees T-ball team. It's the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, The Fan.
Ajay, Salvesen, Gabba the intern, and Karl Smith, Utah State men's basketball trainer, joining me here on a special edition of the Full Court Press, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. Our first hour is posted for you. Be able to re-listen to it. Bob Socci joined me at the top of the hour to talk Patriots and their situation, losing Brady. Where do they go from here in the future of New England Patriots football? They've been spoiled for 20 years, and they're going to realize it very, very, very quickly. All right. Let's have some fun here. It's time to get into the fun stuff of the Utah State basketball. And again, we do it with our special guest, Karl Smith, the trainer for the Utah State men's basketball team. Karl, the 3 nights in Vegas it doesn't do it justice from where we sat. You sat on the bench. I was sitting courtside right across from you guys. It doesn't do it justice for what those 3 nights did for Utah State, for one player in specifically, his legacy, but for Utah State as a team. I want to start with Game 1 versus New Mexico, which was an absolute dogfight. Two things that came out of this. One, Porter was not in great shape health-wise. He was battling back. I know you can't go into too much detail, but there was question is how healthy was he going to be to play? Was that a game time, like up to the minute decision, or did you guys know already?
It was up to the second decision.
Really?
Every second of the game. It was. What can you do?
Yeah.
And you don't know the answer until you go through warm-ups and you get out there. And he got tangled up early in that game.
That's right.
And then kind of went to the ground, and that doesn't help anybody that's already injured. And so it was every second trying to figure it out.
Was that the game that Sean Bairstow injured himself?
No,
that was okay. That was Wyoming, wasn't it?
Mm-mm.
Oh, was it a championship game?
Yeah.
See, it's all in one big blur to me right now. Honestly,
I'm trying to think back of it right now. It
Yeah,
all seems like one big game.
Burrito took that hard fall, right?
Yeah.
I was so, because when we had our effects mic on, and when you hear him hit the floor, I covered my ears. Mm-hmm. With my headphones on, which is unfortunate because then the sound became louder. But I covered my ears because it sounded so bad. You guys checked, I'm guessing, first thing concussion, mm-hmm. and luckily it was it his back, just the way he landed?
Yeah, it was just back issue. Just from the landing in that fall. We did everything, obviously, when a situation like that and anyone gets hit in the head, the first thing we think and the first thing we evaluate is concussion, with it being as hot topic as it is. And all that came back good to go, and so if he could move and get up down the court, he was good to go.
Can I ask you, how do you guys, if you're allowed to share, how do you guys test for concussions in college basketball? What's the process?
You want me to bore you for an hour?
No, yeah, I mean,
we just have before when an athlete gets to Utah State, they go through specific testing for concussions, computer based, and then also some movements, balance. Memorization, kind of some wordplay stuff that we do with them. We just do the standard concussion test that everybody else does. And so after a concussion, you're kind of reevaluating them in those things and then comparing them to the baseline, because some of those tests are kind of hard to do with no head injury. So you're not getting perfect scores. Everyone's not getting 10 out of 10 from the beginning. So if you got a 6 out of 10 from the beginning, can you get a 6 out of 10 after head contact? And we kind of base those off. But the number one thing is symptoms. If you have a symptom of a concussion, you're not going. If you have one symptom, you're done. And then once you have no symptoms, then we kind of do those tests and see how you align up to how you originally did them. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
baseline testing and then kind of following back.
Yeah. Sam Merrill goes on this 10 of 15 shooting display, scores 29 in the game. He had 4 fouls with 9.5, 10 minutes left in the game, and he came in as a guy sitting on the bench.
He got his fourth earlier than that, didn't he?
Yeah, but he came into the game with four fouls with about 9.5 remaining.
Because it was at the 16-minute mark that he got 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was early 60-minute mark, and kind of a ticky-tack foul, if I remember right. But he sits on the bench, and then all of a sudden, New Mexico throws that press at him. Bairstow just can't handle the situation. Brock Miller turns over the ball. It's a turnover fest. And then all of a sudden, New Mexico goes from being down 5 to up 11, 57-46. And then Coach puts in Merrill. Were you at all, honest here, were you at all surprised to see Merrill get up off the bench with 9.5 left in the game?
No, with being down 11, you got to do something before it gets too out of hand. So I wasn't really surprised at that at all. But also, Sam's a smart enough player where you might trust him with 4 fouls more than most people.
And then, of course, Justin Bean had a pretty decent night. He had a double-double as well. In fact, he finished with what? He had 10 points and 15 boards. 15 boards. Yeah. The Diogo Brito 3 in the corner. We're going to get to Sam here in just a bit, but that Diogo Brito 3 to give them a 73-70 lead was huge. Monstrous.
Yeah.
But he shot it right in front of us. Mm-hmm. I don't think he was even on balance. It almost looked like he turned, saw it was open. He's like, "Oh, I'll shoot it."
Yeah.
And hits nothing but net. And just his reaction was so raw. And I gotta ask you, the atmosphere in Game 1, that was Game 1, was electric, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had just lost to him a few days earlier, so we understood what the task, the team and the coaches understood the task at hand and how big that moment was.
Well, and the other thing to it was Nevada was the second game, as was Wyoming, and so everybody's cheering for UNM at this point.
Oh yeah.
And it just seemed like it became a more road game the more people piled into the arena seeing what was going on.
That's the thing. At some of those tournaments, when you're a 2 seed as we were, or a 2 seed like last year, when you're playing a lower seed, the neutral people in the crowd root for the lower seed. So it really doesn't, and I think Aggie fans really showed up for this tournament. I think they did a great job. But when you have the opposing and a fan base like New Mexico that does travel well, whether they're above 500 or not, or kind of whatever their record is, they're going to travel well. And then you have all the neutrals and the people waiting for the next game, rooting for the lower seed. It can get a little daunting, a little loud in there.
Let's move on to the semifinal. They faced, surprisingly, Wyoming. When you found out Wyoming won, what was your reaction?
I was watching in the hotel. I think I was doing treatments, or I don't know if I was with my wife and our 3-year-old McCoy. I can't really remember what I was doing.
Was your wife and kids there too?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. They
went down, and my parents were there, and got to enjoy that and those 3 days.
Oh, that's great.
It was awesome for them. And when you find out Wyoming is such a different team in Las Vegas than the rest of the year, they just started playing free, and so you really don't. And our coaches, they scout the entire year, and they've watched every minute and every second of every game, probably from the last 2 years of these guys. And then a team completely changes the way they're playing, and kind of all the scouting you've done all year is kind of a little bit thrown out the window. They still did some of the same stuff, but a majority of the way they played was different. They just got Marble and the other kid going downhill, and those 2 guys going downhill are not an easy task. So it was good. We knew that they would fight. You come in there as an 11 seed, you win your first 2 games, you get to play the second best team in the conference. At that time, the second best ranked team or rated team in the standings. They don't have an NIT or CBI or anything like that in the future. They just got 1 game left, and they're going to play all out. That's and they've fought every single game. They've always played hard. Wyoming teams have always played hard, and so that they're going to give you everything, and that's what they did. And they were very impressive. They have some talent on that team.
When they play that loose, in fact, you guys led by as much as 9, and then they hit a bucket to start the second half, but you guys hit a 3, so then you're up by 10, and then in the span of about 5 minutes, they go on an 11-4 run, trim it to 3. As you mentioned, Marble was great in this. Marble was fantastic in the tournament. He scores 5 straight, ties it at 66, about with, 7-8 minutes left. And then Merrill just becomes Sam Merrill again. He scored 7 straight.
What'd they shoot from the 3 in that game? 14 for 29?
15 for 29, if I'm not mistaken. Let me make sure that's correct. I believe it was 15.
You don't win many nights with that.
No.
Line.
Well, and then they're 15 for 33 from 3. They shot 45%. In fact, Kenny Foster, who'd been averaging just under 4.5 points per game, scores 12 in like the first 3 minutes that he's on the court. Hits 2 threes.
Yeah, no, he played really well.
Like you said, it was almost like you guys just threw all percentages out the window and said, you know what, scrap it. We got to find a way here.
Yeah, that's what you have to do in those situations. You can't think you're playing the 11 seed Wyoming. You just gotta go out and expect that they're gonna fight and just play it like you play every single game.
With 10:47 left in the game, or about maybe 7:40, I can't remember if it's 10 or 7:47, you have this sequence come up. You have a monstrous block by Nimi. Sam comes down and hits a right wing jumper. Come back the other side, and Kenny Foster goes to the hoop. His card is denied by Keta. And then Sam comes down and knocks after hitting a nice little step back jumper. And you guys take control and pretty much steal it from there. That sequence was enormous, but it was with the 2 best players on the entire court. And it amazes me when you guys needed it the most. It was Keta and Merrill consistently the whole entire 3 nights.
Those guys, and none of the guys in the entire tournament ever got down, no matter what was happening. Whether it was New Mexico, even when New Mexico was up 11 and Wyoming was battling so hard, it's easy to say, like, well, they're just making every 3. We're just, and just kind of lay down a little bit. But our guys believe that they're going to win. They're going to find a way to win, and they're going to do it. And so they just stay in it, and eventually their time comes, and every big win and every win that you can think of that's been a close game that we've had, there's always been those sequences, and then the game kind of wraps up. And so it's just a matter of belief with those guys, in my opinion.
So the problem with this is that it's a late night game. You guys, tell me what the schedule was like immediately after the game, because you've got therapy and work to do on these players after 2 extremely physical games with a championship game at midday the very following day. Like, what was the schedule like for you guys in trying to get these guys your players taken care of and getting them into bed?
As soon as the game ended, I ran up in the stand to my dad and to my wife and my mom and told them to go by at the gas station and buy about 25 bags of ice.
Really?
And get them, and then we'll figure out how to get them up to the 15th floor of the South Point where we stayed. When they got there, and they did that, they weren't in the greatest part of Las Vegas to do that, but they did it. They were all in. They were for that moment. They did that, and then our team was, because they have to do, in a tournament like that, they got to stay in the locker room for media.
That's
you
right.
have the radio,
and they were the
TV,
second to go.
And they were the second to go, even though that they had won. And so they had to do all that. So I hopped in an Uber to get back to the hotel. And me and our team doctor that travels hopped in an Uber, got back to the hotel, met my parents there with ice, did as many ice baths as we could for all the guys that played. Got them, and we have a bunch of recovery things, whether it's different massage guns, recovery pumps, which are boots. Kind of, if anyone follows LeBron on Instagram, the Normatec is what he used. We use recovery pumps, and just kind of did that routine of recovery because we knew it was turning around. But we also wanted them to get as much sleep as they could at the same time. So we just kind of went through a rotation with the guys that played the most down to the guys that played least, and kind of went through that rotation, and then sent them to bed.
So what time did you go to bed?
I don't really remember. After steak and eggs for $4.95 downstairs.
Really?
Yeah, you got to.
So you had steak and eggs, then finally went to bed. And
yeah,
I mean, it's because so Sam said he went to bed. I think he said like 2:30.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to have been to
bed. It was after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you turn around. What time did you guys have to get up for? I mean, all your recovery, or I guess your prep.
I think we had breakfast at 9:30, something like that. So it wasn't too early, which is 10:30 our time. Thank goodness.
Yeah. And then you guys head to the. I guess what time did you go to the arena?
It was about 2 hours before the game, so probably 12:30, 12:40.
I don't know if you're allowed to answer this question. I just got a text in. What was, and in fact, it leads me right into this next discussion. What was pregame like for you guys inside that locker room as you're getting ready to face the number 5th ranked team in the country?
A lot of excitement. These guys aren't afraid of anything. This group this year looks forward to every challenge that they had. And you kind of saw it throughout the year. They played the best in the biggest games, and they knew that. These guys, and there was really there's no fear. There's no hesitancy. It's let's go take care of business.
We're going to talk about the championship game, one of the greatest championship games you might see in conference history, one of them, at least, with Karl Smith, the USU men's basketball trainer. That's all coming up on the Full Court Press, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
The new home for the Full Court Press. Weekday afternoons from 4 to 6 on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
The Full Court Press, Gabby the intern, Karl Smith. I'm Ajay, Salvesen, 106 on FM, 1390 AM, The Fan. Hope you guys are enjoying your Thursday, getting ready for a Friday. We'll have Tyler Jones, the Preston Indians head boys basketball coach. That's my phone rings. I hate that. Does your phone ring like in the middle of the game, or do you put it on silent?
I put it on Do Not Disturb. You can ask my wife. I have my phone on Do Not Disturb probably 75% of the time.
Do you accidentally leave it on Do Not Disturb when
All
you're
the
off the
time.
court? Oh, really?
All the time. Because during practice I have it. At night I have it on Do Not Disturb. A lot of people know to call me twice.
So I was actually surprised when you answered. And Ajay, you need? And then you stopped, and I was like, hello? And then I thought you said, like, what do you need? And I was like, wow, are you kidding me, dude? I haven't talked to you like 2 weeks. And you're like, what do you need? Sorry, man, I'm not a basketball player. I'm your friend, I thought.
You are.
No. Karl Smith, USU men's basketball trainer, joining us here on the Full Court Press. So let's move on to the game of the year for the Utah State Aggies, the Mountain West Conference Championship versus fifth-ranked San Diego State, a team that, when I talk to players and coaches, after the second loss to San Diego State, they all wanted the Aztecs in Vegas. Every single one of them wanted San Diego State. Even when I say, hey, would you rather take UNLV or Boise? No. We want San Diego State. Don't ask me again.
You don't want the asterisk by the championship. You want to beat who people consider as the best.
But you guys had that much confidence that you could go beat them in Vegas. That was what was amazing to me.
Yeah.
Even though I felt like you guys gave them their best punch in the Spectrum, and then even gave them a better punch in San Diego State, and they still found a way to beat you.
Our team was climbing the entire year, if that makes sense. As far as the team, when we played them in January, we played them on Kawhi Leonard night, it was climbing. It wasn't the best we had played. We played the best in the end. And our team knew that. We were getting better every single day. And that's what Coach kept on preaching, and that's what everybody saw.
So you guys are hanging with them for the first few minutes, and then San Diego State goes on this mean run, and all of a sudden it's like, was it 27-11? I mean, you guys could not hit a shot. You didn't score for 18 straight possessions or 10 straight minutes.
There was also a decent, they did go on a run, but in those first few minutes, I think Sam missed 3 wide open threes.
Oh yeah, great looks.
And
too.
then Diogo also missed a wide open 3. So if 3 or 4 of those go down, you're looking at a completely different story. And that's what Coach kept on saying. We are playing well enough on the defensive side. We are playing well enough on offense. They're just not falling right now. Just keep doing what we're doing, and we'll be all right. Everything will equal itself out at the end.
So you're down 20, and is that what? So what's in the huddle?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're down 16,
Coach Smith doesn't really. I wouldn't say he doesn't panic in the huddle, but he is the least panicked coach I've ever worked with.
Really?
As far as in the huddle during the time, I remember my first year here in the Spectrum. We did not play well for the first half, and I'd have to go back and look at the schedule. But I can't. It was a school that we were supposed to beat by 30 or 40, and we were up 5-6 at half. I'd have to go back and look at who it was 2 years ago. And every other coach I've worked for and been around in my life would have just absolutely come in that locker room, guns a-blazing, and let these guys have it. And Coach came in there and focused on the positive from the first half, and that was about it. And we went out. I think we won the game by 30 at the end of it. But it was mind-blowing when I was in there.
The play that people don't talk about enough is Diogo Brito's 3 to end the half. Because, again, you're down by double digits, and I tweeted out several times, get it to 9, get it to 8, just get it to single digits, and we've got a shot. And that 3 by Diogo was just monstrous. Absolutely monstrous for them.
Yeah, it was just such a momentum builder for the second half.
So you go into the second half, you're down 8, but then that 3 turns into a little bit of a run for Utah State. Mm-hmm. And I believe you cut it. In fact, you've cut it to 1 like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And it just could not get over the hump. Like you'd fall, have a layup fall out. Nemius missed an open gimme. I think Bean missed one as well. They come back, they hit a 3, they hit a 2. I mean, just go back to 5, back to 4. And it just, I think it was like 6 straight minutes, you just couldn't get it there.
Just couldn't get over that hump.
But
we also didn't let it get out of hand.
That's what I was going to get to, is that on the other side, you played straight up great defense. Another guy who came in huge for you guys was Alfonso Anderson. Mm-hmm. He comes in. He hadn't played a lot of minutes in the last part of the regular season. Comes in the tournament, lights it up. In fact, has back-to-back threes. And in fact, because they came down, or you guys came down, hit a 3, cut it to 1. They hit a 3 again, or I think hit a 2. I can't remember what it was. And then he comes back and hits another 3, and from there it's just back and forth.
He never changes.
He's monstrous.
That's just who the kid is. It doesn't matter if the game before he played 2 minutes or 12 or 30. He's gonna have the same attitude. Every single day in practice, he has a good attitude every single game, and that really doesn't waver at all. And in the biggest moment, he shined, and I was exuberant for the kid. I was just super excited for him.
A part I don't want to forget: Sean Bairstow goes to the hoop. I mean, high in the air, falls to the ground hard, and then is helped off the court. I don't want to get into injury specifics, but did you know immediately that, hey, his night's done?
No, didn't know immediately.
Because he came back, because he went to the scores table, right?
Yeah.
Did he take himself out of the game, or did you, or how? Because he was going to go in, and then coach turns around and calls for Brock.
He thought he could go back out there, and then in the last moment, he kind of had some hesitancy.
Second thoughts?
Just like, maybe not. So. And
he comes out in a sling, right, in a cast or something. I mean, he came out because I think you came to the bench. I saw you come out, no Sean, and that's when I was like, this isn't good. I felt so bad because he actually had played pretty darn well.
Yeah, he did. He's an unbelievable. First off, he's an unbelievable human being, and a huge part of our team as far as morale and support and energy. But you did feel bad for him because he had been playing really, really well. And his minutes had been going up, and then that happened.
That last 2.5 minutes where the Thomas and Mack turned the lights out and said, Flynn, Merrill, give us a show. Mm-hmm. Was that incredible to see from your view or what?
I mean, yeah, it was because we won. But it was – those two guys are so good and have a chance to be really, really good. And watching those two best players in the league, I mean, there's no doubt about that. And I'm not going to tell you who I think is the best player, but they're the 2 best players in the league. And watching those two go at it and carry their teams was I'll never forget watching that. Even though thinking back on it, and I've watched the game twice since it happened, I don't know if I could break it down play by play. Besides the last 16 seconds.
Sam layup, Flynn floater. Sam 3, and then Flynn comes and hits a ridiculously tough NBA range 3 and gets it back with, I think he had tied it up. And then Sam comes back down to the last 16 seconds, as you said. And we all know that the rest is history.
Tied at 56. Merrill for the lead. He's got it! Oh, my goodness.
He was fouled. I don't know how.
He was.
They called a ticky-tack foul on Abel on the other side to get Fegan 3 free throws. And then Sam gets clocked, and they don't call it.
Yeah, that happens. I won't comment on officiating. I don't know who listens.
Okay, so the New Mexico 3, I was like, that's not good. That's short. Oh my gosh, what are you doing, Sam? And then he goes in. Mm-hmm. The San Diego State 3 was even better guard, and I said, that's going in.
Yeah. That's what you expect from a
Did you know it was good? Did you think it was good?
For my angle, I knew it had a chance. I knew it had a chance. I didn't necessarily know it was good. But my favorite play from the game was actually with 8 minutes ago when he pulled up on the left wing.
Was this in transition, right?
In transition. That was my favorite, and you can watch my reaction. I think my wife has it on her Instagram.
I need to watch
it. It was unbelievable. That was actually my favorite play from the game.
Why?
Just the guts it takes to shoot that shot in transition. It's unreal. Like just to have the confidence to pull it up from that distance in that situation, and then drill it is unbelievable to me.
I got on Twitter. I mean, it was a late night. I want to get to celebration with you in just a moment, but it was a late night. I got on Twitter and put out on Twitter, does anybody else want to argue with me that Sam is the greatest ever? There were people just 2 months ago when we had our 5 best Aggies ever, and I put Sam as my guy, who were just crucifying me for it. That night, after that game, at about 12 o'clock in the morning, they're all like, nope, we're good. Yeah, we're good. Sam's the greatest ever. Thought so. I know you have to be careful because you are, I mean, there's a, I guess, bias, if you want to call it. Where does Sam Merrill come in your regard as one of the greatest ever that you've been able to see from your point of view?
It's the best Aggie that I've seen in my 2 years.
That's a good answer. That's a smart answer.
But you know, and I've watched Utah State basketball throughout my life at points, and not every single game. And honestly, when you're traveling and it's on the hotel at 10 p.m. Eastern time, where I normally have been, you can tune in because you don't want to watch SportsCenter for the third time, so you just tune into whatever game is live. So I've seen. I don't remember watching JC, and obviously I didn't. And this is people in the Valley aren't gonna be happy with me, but I didn't know who Wayne Estes was till I came here.
No,
obviously since then I've read everything about him, and I know the whole story now, and that seems unbelievable. But I like to, and it goes. You know, our guys always like to argue top 5 NBA players currently and all that. And honestly, in my opinion, I don't really like to argue greatness. I just like to appreciate it. And that's what we did for 3 days in Vegas.
We'll take our final break, and we'll come back and wrap this one up with Karl Smith, Utah State men's basketball trainer. It's been a lot of fun. 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
It's the Full Court Press, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan. I was just telling Karl and Gabby off the air, this show has gone by so fast. Unreal. Absolutely unreal how quick the show has gone by. It's been a lot of fun. Karl, thanks for coming out, man. This has been a blast.
No big deal. Anytime.
Excuse me. We got about 80 seconds left. For you, you've been through a lot of seasons. Where does this Utah State basketball season lie as one of your fun seasons?
Probably first, honestly.
Really?
Just the adversity and everything that we had to go through as a team. To have it in like that when you kind of have battled through everything, so sometimes you don't even know if it's possible. Especially, my viewpoint's a little bit different than even a coach's. I kind of deal with the players day to day and kind of their mental status and those kind of things. But at times when you don't know if it can happen, and then just to put the work in. And we'll go back to Dabo Swinney really quick when he said the fun is in the process, not in the moment. And I look back at some of those practices that weren't very pretty, but they were a lot of fun thinking back about it.
The Fan has invited businesses, clubs, organizations, church groups, and event organizers to call in and tell us what you're doing in light of the COVID-19 situation. Call in at 435-774-1674. For Karl Smith, for Bob Socci, for Gabby the intern, I'm Ajay Salvesen. You've listened to another edition of the Full Court Press, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.